A trial is underway in Colorado to determine whether Donald Trump should be disqualified from running for president because of his role in the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. The lawsuit filed by 6 Colorado voters argues that Donald Trump is ineligible to hold office again under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies anyone who, having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Lawyers for the Colorado voters tied Donald Trump's words and actions to the violence on January 6th, arguing that he summoned the mob that he knew was armed and dangerous and helped them by, quote, refusing to mobilize resources to stop the attack. We are here because Trump claims, after all that, he has the right to be president again. But our Constitution, our shared charter of our nation, says he cannot do so. Washington, D.C. police officer Daniel Hodges was the first witness to testify about how he feared for his life as he was brutally assaulted by Trump supporters who chanted that the election was stolen and to fight for Trump. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell then testified about how he and other lawmakers monitored Donald Trump's comments as rioters breached the Capitol to stop the certification of the election.
A lot uncertainty, disbelief that this was happening, that we were taking our coats off, that we were looking for weapons or how to use gas masks. We connected the president's tweets to our own safety in the chamber.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. He was an impeachment manager in the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump, and he's a plaintiff in a civil suit against Donald Trump for his role in inciting the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Congressman Swalwell, as always, great to see you. What did you tell the court today, and why were you called as a witness?
Well, Jonathan, I'll start by saying, unlike some individuals, I can follow a judge's order. And so I'm not going to talk about the merits of the case. And the testimony was public, and you played it. But I will talk about Donald Trump's accountability, or just lack of accountability. He's been a stranger to accountability for most of his career. And as we see him being held accountable in a courtroom in New York for every gag order that he violates, or being held accountable in Washington, D.C. as he threatens prosecutors, or down in Georgia, this is what it looks like when our rule of law comes together. And so many of your viewers have told me, and my own constituents have told me over the years, he's going to get away with it. I know it. He's going to get away with it. And people have just lost faith in the rule of law. And I assured them so many times, and you and Lawrence have, that it can work. And so all of these proceedings, is the rule of law working? And an independent jurist and a jury of his peers will ultimately decide what happens to him.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, the judge laid out some questions to be addressed about this Civil War era provision, like whether it applies to presidents and the meaning of engaged and insurrection as used in the 14th Amendment. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the 14th Amendment does lay out, the qualifications, to hold office, and that's what, the judge will ultimately have to decide. I'll just say that as a member of the House, I think every day, what would have happened if the Speaker of the House was in on what Donald Trump wanted to do? We had Speaker Pelosi presiding, and we had a Vice President, Mike Pence, who didn't want to go along with what Donald Trump asked. But MAGA Mike, and that's not my pejorative for him, that's what his Republican colleagues call him, MAGA Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, was the architect of the idea that Donald Trump could overturn the election. So if the Republicans were to win the House in the upcoming election and there was another challenge by Donald Trump, you would have a speaker who believes that the will of the voters doesn't matter, and that violence can be more powerful than voting.
What we've seen up until now, Speaker Mike Johnson, MAGA Mike, as he's called by his colleagues, that there were Republicans who were trying to whitewash what happened on January 6th, a regular tourist visit, or something about a political discourse, rational political discourse. What do you make of Republicans who are still trying to whitewash the violence of that day?
The reason my Republican colleagues are whitewashing what happened on January 6th is because it has to be a fiction in the reality of the voters if Donald Trump is going to be their nominee. And spoiler alert, Donald Trump is well on his way to being their nominee. So they have to lie to the voters to essentially take out of the voters' mind what Donald Trump did that day. Look, the Republican Party is a party that's no longer interested in governing and leading or helping anyone that watches this show with any problem that they have in their life. They are a law firm, Insurrection LLC, now led by MAGA Mike Johnson, whose only duty, as they see it, is to wake up every day and litigate the grievances of one client. And that's Donald Trump. And that's really what's going to be on the ballot. Like, will we make sure democracy lives long enough to live forever this upcoming election, or will we lose it forever because Donald Trump prevails?
You know, last week I talked to Officer Harry Dunn about his new book recounting what happened to him on January 6th and his feelings about what folks are doing to try to erase the history. Officer Hodges testified in quote, I want to read what he said. He said, "I was afraid for my life and my colleagues. I was afraid for the people in the U.S. Capitol building, Congressman, the vice president, and what these people would do to them and how it would affect our democracy." How important was Officer Hodges' testimony with video reminding people of just how violent this was, why Trump supporters were there, and what they intended to do?
Jonathan, because of what Officer Hodges did that day, I'm still alive. My colleagues are still alive. And we were able to go back to the Capitol and count the votes. I displayed Officer Hodges' bravery when I was one of the impeachment managers in the Senate. And for your viewers, they don't have to do what Officer Hodges did. They don't have to get beat up. They don't have to get bear sprayed. They don't have to be hit by a mob to be patriotic and to show their love for this country. They just have to register to vote and show up to vote to make sure that we are never a country that has an attempted coup put on it again. And you can be just as patriotic as what Danny Hodges did that day.